it actually starts like right now, even though it doesn't show up that it starts right now. It has to set it up and whatever, but I think it somehow works some internet magic and starts recording as soon as you hit the button. And so it's, recording it, and here we are. And so we're on. So anyway, hello YouTube, everybody. And so we'll just get started with the show. So I'm just going to breathe and we'll get started. All right. Welcome to the show. I'm so happy you're here. You're going to be so happy you are here. I am Kim Sorrelle. I write, I speak, I get to do lots of fun things in life, but my favorite thing to do by far is to meet people. And I meet some really cool people. And today I have Deanna on my show. She has a very interesting childhood and a very interesting perspective on life that I think you're really going to enjoy and get a lot from. And we're going to talk some about tapping into your intuition, tapping into sort of the inner you, which I'm excited about that. And so I wanted to say, Deanna, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Kim, for having me on.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad that you're here. I want people to get to know you because your story has definitely played into the person that you are today, like it does for all of us. But your story is different than probably people have ever heard before. So let's first start with 8-year-old Deanna. Tell us about her.
Yeah, 8-year-old Diana was living in very different environments. So if you can think of, you know, the Cold War era. So I was in Soviet Union at the time in the capital of Belarus called Minsk, which was part of the Soviet Union. Later, Soviet Union, for those who might know the history, in early 1991 kind of collapsed and kind of finished that Cold War era. But yeah, it was very interesting communistic type of environment regime, but in some ways open if for me, I think, because children at age of 8 were okay to be on the buses by themselves, kind of roaming around the city without being asked a lot of questions. And I was such a curious soul. I was kind of courageous in that way. I did go to English school, and it was an hour away from home. And I had tennis lessons that were on the other side of the capital. So it's really a big city. And so I really journeyed a lot. I sometimes didn't make it to my classes. Later, I told my mom when I was much older, she's like, oh, wow, like you really explored. And so I loved like watching people. I loved seeing, I guess, this different aspect of adults and what they're going through. And so I was this, I would say, curious child, old soul. I was tall, so everyone thought I was older than I am. And I found myself in different situations, I would say, on these journeys where I could see like what was about to happen. Like one time I was on a bus and this woman was supposed to get off this, and then I told her not to get off. And then later learned there was like an accident that happened like literally a minute later. That kind of stuff. It's almost like there was this innate knowingness, omniscience, I guess, whatever you want to call it. Like this feeling about things or observations that maybe an 8-year-old, usually 8-year-old, doesn't have, but I definitely did. And so, yeah, so 8-year-old self was in a different environment, and then 10-year-old self moved to Israel. So that was, uh, completely different. So if in the communist era, we didn't have maybe as many provisions, we didn't have fruits like bananas. I remember when we moved to Israel when I was 10, like that was my first thing. It was like all these bananas, all these fruits and watermelons. And we lived in this beautiful valley facing Nazareth, where obviously Jesus grew up. And so it was really magical in that way, very expansive. I felt much more connected to the land, to the people, and it was different type of freedom. But then that freedom, unfortunately, that paradise kind of feeling went away quickly. In about a year, the Gulf War started in 1991. And that's when I explored for the first time, experience, in the middle of the night, the missiles flying and all these bomb raids going off. And we had to hide in a room in our apartment because they were afraid of biological weapons. This is during, the Bush administration and and so it was a new perspective. I think I was in the sixth grade where we had to walk with a gas mask to school, and we had all these drills, and it became like part of your life, where you kind of have jitters a little bit about, in thinking about that, but it kind of became part of childhood that this is how things are, that maybe that safety is an illusion, but you still want to feel safe. And then, in the middle of the night, as you're there sitting with that gas mask and with your parents and your sister, and you kind of have this moment of contemplation, of questioning reality, and maybe not being as fearful anymore of death. I think I really grew up quickly in like recognizing how temporary this life is, how to be really grateful for every moment we have. And it's a fleeing moment. And which brings me, and I think Kim, I told you the story when I was 14, where that definitely came into highlight of how close we are to death sometimes. And so I was on this bus stamps, and again, I lived in this beautiful valley, and it was surrounded by a lot of mountains and towns. And my friend and I would skip class, and we're just standing there, you know, having a beautiful day. And then this inner voice inside started having these debates with me about leaving the area, and it got louder and louder. And it's almost I was having this inner fight, like, what do you mean I need to leave? Like, no. And it got almost like to a place where it was like commanding, like it's like it knew something is about to happen. And so I had to grab my friend. She very much resisted too, and we kind of crossed the road, turned the corner, and then we heard boom. And it was very shocking because we didn't know what happened. I actually for a second thought it was like a piece of a plane fell. Like I didn't have any reference point because in 1994 there was no terrorist bombings in Israel. Today it's like a known thing. Back then it was the first bus bombing actually in April 1994 because the groups were in the same prisons, the Hezbollah, Hamas, they taught each other how to do it. And so there was a car filled with ammunition that roamed into the bus that was standing there and all the people there. So, this is back in the day with no cell phones, there's no communication. The whole day was very hazy to even figure out how to get back home. And it took me years actually to like um, realize that I'm completed with that day. I felt like I was still like harmonizing and ultimately asking the big questions like, what was that voice? How did it know? What is this life all about? How fleeting it is, and also where there may be things that are beyond our eyes, like how things happen the way they do, and does the soul have maybe choice in the matter? And so big questions that led me to many journeys and a lot of the things that I do today. I empower others to connect to their intuition. We can call it your higher self, that inner voice, activate this energy within you. I went through many journeys, becoming a Reiki master, shamanic guide, metaphysical guide, and all the things that I do in channel today. I think just really stem from those really interesting years.
Mm, yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I mean, it's quite a thing to go through and to live in where you're carrying a gas mask to school. Like, holy cow. I mean, that's just not natural. Like there should be, you would hope that there would be just such this wonderful sense of security that you skip your way to school and just go and have fun, and go and learn or whatever, and be a happy-go-lucky kid and not one that's carrying around a gas mask. And then the things that happened, it's amazing that you recognize that you're able to tap into your intuition. I think there's so many people that ignore their intuition or think it's not really a thing or whatever. I personally think cats are just really cool. And, they talk about women's intuition. Well, men can have intuition as well. But they say, oh, women's intuition, when you feel something is going to happen. Or we've all heard stories about somebody waking up and looking at the clock and it's 3 o'clock in the morning and they don't know why they're awake, but they've got this feeling something. And then they get a phone call that their uncle died at 3 o'clock in the morning. Or, just all kinds of stories like that that happen to people often. And
Mhm.
I kind of feel like we've squished it like we've smushed it down and said, don't listen to that. Like there's something bad about that. There's nothing bad about it. I just think it's part of God being God, that it's that cool that there's things that go on that you don't see, that you don't know that are going on, and that you have this inner voice that if you choose to, you can listen to. And so I love the idea of teaching people how to tap into that inner voice. And it comes in so many different languages and so many different ways, right? And so many different approaches. And I think to like some religions, to Christians, some of it can be so scary. To other religions, whatever, it can be like, oh my gosh, that's out there. What is that? Woo woo is a word you hear all the time for whatever reason. And it just comes down to what is truth, what is real. And I think most people, if they think about it, have had a moment in their life when they've gone, wow, something told me that. Like I knew that ahead of time. Why did I just feel that feeling? Like, what is it telling me? And ignore it. And how incredible it is if you can figure out how to not ignore it and instead understand it. Just it's a different life.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot there. I think we also have to understand like we having this identification of with the ego. And the ego is operating from kind of our primordial brain, which is the survival of the fetus, right? If you think about ourselves back, in the cave days, and there's like a lion running around, and lion was associated right away with danger, right? Lion can eat you, but you had to get food. And, you would venture to the same tree that you go to, and you had to collect the berries and then run back to the cave. So the same path you would take every day. So sameness equals safety. That's how the nervous system, that primordial brain operates. But one day you go to the tree and the berries dried out. And so what happens? You freak out because now you have to search for a new tree. That means you have to step into the unknown. And it equates right away to this energy of fear that it's not safe anymore. Unknown is unpredictable, right? And so, but fear, danger is real. Fear is an illusion of the mind because we don't have lions running around today. Maybe different type of, dangers, absolutely. But sometimes we still operating from that reptilian perspective where we, in the nervous system, we don't trust ourselves fully. We think unknown is not safe for us. Unknown is something we can control because in the control in environment, this is becomes predictable. And so recognizing that is gives us a perspective where, our ego is trying to control the narrative. It's trying to make it in a certain way. So it limits us in our belief systems. It limits us in understanding because it wants the same repetitive thing. So, and sometimes unknown creates for people anxiety because unknown is kind of living in the future in some ways. It's unpredictable. The past is being depressed because you kind of ruminating and you're recycling the same thing. So nothing better than actually being in the present moment. It's like anytime you feel anxious, anytime you feel you don't know or fear is coming up, just breathe into it. Bring yourself into your body, bring that safety, and reassurance that everything is okay. Breathe through it, create that moment of full presence. And that's where we really start listening and tapping in because that inner knownness, that intuition is all there. But because we're not listening to it and we just kind of all over the place, that's where I feel the challenge is.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, that was so well put. Because it is so true. There are so many things that we react and don't think about why we're reacting a certain way. But it can go back to the caveman days. It can go back so far, or it can go back to some prior trauma in your life, and that's why you're reacting that way. And so often things don't have anything to do really with the reality of right now circumstances, but because of whatever reason, you react the way you do because of something in the past. And so, so yeah, so for people that like kind of get nervous about things, or Jesus, is this something that I should be ignoring? Is it something bad? Whatever. Personally, I would say to them, um, I believe in God, and I just believe in that God is so much bigger than we realize, and there's so much more, and so much more multifaceted, and so much deeper and richer and caring and loving, and there's just so much more good energy that we just don't tap into, that we just I don't know, just let lie. And for people like you who know how to tap into it and the importance to, it's a different life, because you're going to look at things differently. You're going to look at life in general differently, and fear isn't going to be as play as big a role in your life. You're going to understand it more. The more we can understand stuff like that, the happier we can be. Like, what is wrong? There's nothing wrong with that. So I would love for you to talk about, well, how do you address people, first of all, that are going, what is this stuff? How do you talk to them? And then how do you tap in more to your inner knowing, the
Yeah.
voice that's going on?
Well, we all have a human experience, and the human experience is difficult. We all challenged here in all kinds of ways, whether, it's the life we were born to, the conditions, our family traumas, like you mentioned, because there's always, situations that happen. It's really great if you're born into really happy, anchored father and mother, but often enough, there's one of the family members that is not fully available for you, so there's always these traumas that start from childhood, because really, as you said, God, source, whatever we want to call it, we are born from that energy. And I really believe we're born as these like pure angelic beings, being these little children. But then the conditions of the society, the conditions of our family, or not receiving the love and nourishment and support that we need, creates these traumas. It creates these rifts and these inner separations from that connection with the God and source. Therefore, disconnection from yourself. And so, how do we reestablish that connection, that trust? Some of it is releasing some of these traumas, and I truly believe we have to release them from the body. So I know a lot of people go to mental counseling. That's one way, but it's all in the mind. A lot of it is sitting in the trauma. The trauma itself is sitting in the body. So you have to do some somatic work, with it, with different trauma therapists out there. I work with embodiment as well too, breath work. There's so many different modalities where you can actually tap into that and release it from, your nervous system, from your somatic intelligence. And then as you clear, if you feel like you were blocked, and as you start clearing that, the really good practice is really meditation, of course, a way to silence the mind, to bring yourself from that external distraction, from the external validation that the mind is constantly seeking, back into itself. Because essentially, we are perceiving this reality, like think of a computer, right? And the software is running through it. And you open the computer and you have all these tabs open. Each tab is essentially trying to collect information. We are the same way. It's like too many tabs are open sometimes, so we have to close them, or sometimes reboot it altogether, because otherwise the computer is not running well. The processing, like you can hear the sound, is not doing well. And so that's kind of what happening to us. It's like our nervous system or our channels of perception are trying to tap into too much information. And so we have to silence that, sometimes to close our eyes, to breathe, to really go inward into our hearts. A lot of people have their hearts not fully open because they were hurt, And so learning how to kind of reopen your heart, release, bring it to forgiveness, bring it into compassion, bring it back to love, essentially, because love is the force that holds this whole creation, and love is God and goddess, right? For me, it's more feminine actually than masculine. I believe this is like a divine mother energy. And so allowing the divine mother to really hold you, and you held by that energy, you held also on by the planetary energy, because Earth as well, she's, has her own divine feminine energy. So there's a lot of mothering happening here. And sometimes people feel so separated and feel very lonely, but you're never really alone. We're all going through this experience together. And so how do you tune to that? You just really have to sit with yourself, right? And sometimes it's not just sitting still. You can, close your eyes and dance. It doesn't it's not a physical stillness, it's energetic stillness. It's like practicing the stillness in the middle of the storm. It's just being really centered. So back to reaction, yeah. If you have a family member that triggers you, and you want to like, shout and be angry, instead of reacting to that, ask yourself, where is this coming from? Where is this anger really coming from? Is this from this moment? Or like how far back does it go? Maybe it's something from a childhood. Maybe my parents do put too much responsibility on me and I didn't want it. And then I've been resenting, this responsibility, and this anger has been building up, building up, building up through time. And so any little thing is triggering that anger. And so really sitting with that emotion. So going into the emotion itself, like where did it start? Right. And then breathing through it, processing and bringing it to the surface, connecting to that. And then from that place, just, finding that moment of stillness within you and listening. And I think a lot of it is about, like I was mentioning, the ego is like a broken record. It just paints the story of who you think you are, the story you build for yourself sometimes as a kid. This is what I am. This is what happened to me. And start building the observer perspective. Almost talk about yourself in third person, you know, like Kim actually is this and this and that. And start seeing your story from maybe a different angle than you've ever looked at again. And that observer effect really starts helping you zoom out and quiet that noise inside and quiet that inner critic, because that's the ego talk as well. Like anytime you hear the inner critic, there's like, no, you can't do this. No, you're not good enough. You're not enough. You're not worthy. All this chatter, that's usually the ego. Because the minute the ego quiets down a little bit and you start kind of befriending it and it softens, on the God soul level, you are worthy. You are part of that energy. How can you not be worthy? You are love, literally. And you just having this experience, this lifetime, in this moment right now, to experience physicality in this particular format, and just being really in this place of gratitude. It's such a beautiful blessing to have this experience, whether it's good or bad. We're learning about these experiences and when they integrate them ultimately, and we're like, oh, wow, the lesson there. Yes, my childhood was tough, but so many incredible lessons and so much growth, right? In that moment of contemplation.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's so good. That's so true. I love what you said about, where's your anger really coming from? Why is that a trigger for you? When somebody says this sentence, when somebody uses that word, when somebody speaks in that tone, whatever it is that immediately you want to flare up. Well, it probably has nothing to do necessarily with the moment, that exact moment. It's something else that has happened. And so to identify, to think about it and go, well, where's it really from? So that you can deal with it. And then the next time it won't happen. Or it might take a couple times and it won't happen. But just get in touch with where does it really come from. And I love how you talk about getting still. I read this book a few years ago that was so good. It was I'm trying to remember what it was called, Listening Prayer, I think maybe. It was a small book and it was so good. But it was this woman's story about how uh she was kind of lost. Like she was a missionary in some country, I don't know where, and nothing was happening around her. Like she wasn't even getting along with the person who was like her help person in the city, and just nothing was really happening. And then somebody came and visited, and everything in the town changed because this one person, like this traveling missionary, I guess, came and visited, and didn't really like hold some big revival or anything. He just kind of said, "Hey, I'm here if anybody wants to talk." And the whole town changed. Like so many things changed. And so she went to him and she was like, what did you do? I've been working in this town for so long and everybody's been so angry and it's been so hard. And you come and now everybody's at peace and like all is well because you show up. And he said, just listen. All you have to do is listen. And he said, you just quiet your mind. You get away from all the thoughts that are going on, quiet your mind and just listen. That's all you have to do is just listen. And so she learned how to do that because it's not necessarily the easiest thing, right? The very first time you just tell your mind to be quiet, your mind doesn't necessarily want to obey. How do you, what are some great techniques or a great way to quiet your mind?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of breathing, breath work. So instead of being in the mind, bringing through breath work your attention to the heart, bringing attention to the body. So you start as you do that, you like that's the first thing I always do. And anyone can do that. Taking a deep breath into your heart and long exhale out with your mouth open. Another deep breath into your heart and exhale out. Another deep breath in, fully relaxing and letting go. And just noticing how your system is quieting down now and how you're more present here with that attention and intention, grounding your energies. And so this starts really kind of quieting, and then you're more here in the body. And that's kind of where we want to be, because the heart is that incredible organ, but it's also heart chakra. So it's an energetic portal. And they've done also so many scientific studies. It's like the electromagnetic output it puts out is incredible. Like it can really affect like, a whole store and more. And the people you interact with, they all feel that. So if your heart is incoherent, meaning it's beating in a way that it's predictable, it's like boom, 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 boom. That's why in Native American shamans, they always, use the drum because they kind of simulate in the beating of the heart. And so when it's coherent, it's and not all over the place. It's like very kind of goes like this, then what it does, it actually brings your brain into coherence too, meaning it slows down. So it shifts you from the brainwave of beta when we're like talking, we're very active. It brings you into alpha. It's almost like you're a little more sedated in some ways, like when you're watching TV. When you're in a dream state, you're in theta. So it drops in a little bit into that state. And so you're like, just a little more, less active, more present in the moment. And so when the brain and the heart are synchronizing and the whole system is coming into coherence and alignment, that's the state you want to be in. And so anytime you feel flared up, just do that. 3 breaths is enough. You can breathe in even more and just notice right away. And that's kind of what happens if you have another reaction, catch yourself early enough. And sometimes you just have to step away from the scene altogether, maybe, take a couple of steps back, or just allow yourself that pause, allow yourself that minute to take those few breaths and then notice and see how now you're in a more neutral state. It's not emotionally charged. And from that place, now you're not reacting, you're responding back. And that's such a different shift because now you actually in coherence and you can actually see the situation much more clearly.
Yeah, that's so good and such a simple thing to do. And
Yeah.
I love the way you say breathe into your heart. Like, there's people probably who haven't heard that before, but it's, not, if you just think about, think about breathing into your heart. It's a whole different feeling than just taking a breath. That if you feel it that way, if you try to feel it that way and think about it that way, and yeah, that's beautiful. And how you can go from to zen, and just 3 breaths is amazing. But yes, and the energy we give off. I mean, um, I think it's really good to be aware of what kind of energy you're giving off and other people are giving off.
Mhm.
I think the more you're aware of the energy you're giving off, the more you're going to want to give off good energy. And the more you're aware of the energy coming at you, the more discerning you're going to be. Like, who should I be hanging out with? Who really is a friend? Who is somebody I should marry or not, or date or not, or whatever it is. But to be aware, to let yourself be aware of the energy. I mean, sometimes I'm sure it's happened to everybody without them even thinking about it, but you can walk into a room and immediately feel like, oh, I like this place. This
Mm.
feels good, right? Or you can walk into a room and go, ugh, why am I so tense right now? Like, why is my heart beating faster? And it's because of the energy that's in the room. So how do you discern that? And how do you create good energy? Make sure that you're the bringing the good energy with you where you go.
Yeah, great questions. So I think what you're talking about is also energetic boundaries. So we have to like recognize we all have our own energetic field, and often enough, empaths who feel everything because they get overwhelmed, they tend to contract the energy field and kind of like shut down in some ways. And it kind of comes at them really quickly. And I would say instead of contracting when you step into a room like that that feels chaotic and like a lot to take in, you just need to create your own boundaries. You can put yourself into like a bubble of light, breathe into your heart and like emanate that energy from your heart space. Like I said, the heart is the most important portal. It's electromagnetically charged. It like you can imagine golden color or green color and just put yourself in a bubble. There's different techniques of doing that. And that already is going to help because then you'll be going to be recognizing what is mine, what is not mine, right? So you kind of like I don't like to use the word shielding yourself. It's more continuously staying in your center. So if you yourself come into the space and you're already vulnerable and weak and you're not grounded and you're chaotic, that energy is going to, of course, affect you because it's all that discoherent. So it's as simple as bringing yourself back into coherence and alignment, like the way we just did, even with a little bit of breathing or visualization. And for me, I see myself as the beacon of light. Like everywhere I go, I'm like, I I know where I am. I've done my meditation. I've centered myself. I'm kind of working on the purifying of my field and making sure like I am true to me and I know where I am. So if I'm not feeling great that day, I'm not going to go to like a busy event or busy party, or I'm going to work on recalibrating myself because then you become more vulnerable. It's like you're draining yourself out even more. And I think that's what happens often, like you're saying, with relationship toxic environments where people are already exhausted, they're already like their fields are vulnerable, and then it just depletes them even more. So, being gentle with yourself and really, I would say, true and authentic to your and where you are today. There's just a lot happening. Like there's so many cosmic upgrades, so much solar activity. And I know I post about them a lot on my Instagram. Like there are days where we like get bombarded with geomagnetic activity, and those days people processing things. They experiencing maybe discomforts in their body and their pain and things like that. So maybe those are the days you should integrate, hydrate, stay low. Maybe not push yourself and really discern where you are energetically, especially if you go into big crowds and big other spaces. And yeah, sometimes the space itself is amazing because a lot of it is about also the person holding the space. So, and that's kind of something I teach too, is like the person who owns the space, the hostess, usually, has her intentions. Also, there's ways to hold the coherence. I work with quantum technology. So like I have my Be Light Alchemy Etsy shop as well. So I actually sell some items that help to hold coherence. I have these orbs that you can kind of plug in, put on LED. They're really pretty with sacred geometry. Just having that orb in the space or a pendant that's quantum. Quantum is essentially that energy of coherence. And so it harmonizes you, it reminds you how to be in harmony and also harmonizes the space. Sometimes we can also use tricks how to do that or other, crystals. People use different things to harmonize.
Yeah. So what kind of tricks?
What kind of tricks? I think it's just a lot of it is through intention. People using smudging stick or candles or, you know, eh, or just, ensuring this, just intention alone sometimes is enough. I think also it depends on like if there's alcohol involved, I'll be like forward with that.
Mhm.
The room is not as harmonious. And the reason why is because there's a reason why they're called spirits, because when you're actually drinking alcohol, your field actually is much more vulnerable and open to other energies. So at the event, where there's alcohol involved, it's harder to hold that harmony, I would say, because there's just more to deal with. From one perspective, it disconnects people. From another, it kind of makes them a little rowdy, maybe, but it's different energy than with it's not alcoholic event. Yeah, I think it's really by people who are there, as you said, and the intentions they have, and also what state of consciousness they at.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So true. So true. So much plays into it. And
Yeah.
I always think about that too, like when I'm going to speak, that I first want to picture how do I want people to feel when I'm done?
Mm.
Like what do I really want them to feel? And I feel like that helps me get into a place where it's takes it absolutely, it's not about me at all. It's about them and how I want them to feel. So then my energy automatically changes and shifts to a generous, giving energy is how I feel. Just even embodying love all the more. And am I making sense to you? Like, does that make sense? Like,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. I think what you're alluding to is like people will remember not what you did for them, but how you made them feel.
Mhm.
And that can translate to anything. That's like true legacy because the feeling is what kind of stays with people. They like, wow, I went to Kim's talk. Like she made me feel emotional. She made me reconnect to myself or maybe, emotionally, right, connect to some parts of me that resonated. I think a lot of it is resonance as well. And resonance is actually frequency. Like who do we resonate with? We're not always resonate with everyone. And that's kind of talking about distortion and discernment. Like there's so much information out there, but not every person or the way they're delivering or the intention is going to resonate with you. But there are certain ones that you follow on YouTube or you watch Kim's podcast and you're like, yeah, everything Kim says is literally she's saying what I'm feeling. And so it's usually always about the feeling and not so much about even what we're saying.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So keeping that in mind, as you go to work or as you go to somebody's home or you even go to the grocery store, if you realize that's what people will remember about you, that's what people will know about you consciously, subconsciously, whatever, is that how do you make them feel? Uh, then you should want to go with good feelings because you should automatically have this desire to make people feel good, to make them feel something, but something positive and something helpful, not something that's going to bring people down, not something that, yeah, how many times have you been in a situation where somebody's having a bad day and all of a sudden everybody around them is having a bad day? And it's like, well, that's what you're going to remember about that person is, man, I was doing just fine and he brought me down. And but I think that there's something to that also, in that we don't have to let people bring us down. So kind of what
Mhm.
you were talking about with the bubble is because you'll hear people say, oh my gosh, he made me so mad, she made me so upset, she made me so depressed. Well, how do you feel about that? Like, I feel like, can people really make you, or are
No.
you allowing them to? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's the sovereignty I think that you're talking about. Like we are all sovereign beings. We have to take responsibility of our own emotional state. Like you wake up in the morning, you're feeling groggy, great. You can continue feeling groggy, but don't drag others into your grogginess, right? But we do attract to ourselves, of course, these circumstances and people. But we also have a choice. We can also shift out of that grogginess, right? We're like, okay, this is how I'm feeling. That's fine. But maybe I'll breathe, I'll move around, I'll, whatever, I'll dance, whatever brings me, I'll have my coffee, whatever brings me a little bit of joy and bringing joy back. Then setting intentions for the day and putting some informations and seeing how magical the day will be. Then you go out like that with that frequency. And like you said, walking into the store whether you want to smile or not, almost like, bringing that out, that magic in you and smiling to others. It's literally I call it love ripple. We're creating these ripples of love with whoever we interact. And And if we breathe in into our heart again, we emit that love frequency to everyone we interact with, whether we conscious or unconscious, because they just feel it. And then you just kind of flow through your day that way and see how magic does unfold for you, because it's incredible. Like take a longer path. Like let's say you're driving to work every day and it's like you're taking the same journey. But today, choose a different journey. Maybe go the scenic route. Notice in this scenic route new things that you haven't maybe seen before. And this is how we break patterns. This is how we start really becoming a bit more creative with ourselves, but more aware, because a lot of it is awareness, right? Aware of our surroundings and also noticing the beauty in things is so important. Like this little moments, to slow down and notice maybe, a bug, a butterfly on the grass, like little things that maybe you were so in a rush to get to work. Now you're like, I'm okay to be late a little bit today. I don't think I'm going to be that punished, 5, 10 minutes. But how it shifts completely your day is incredible. And how you can shift others, that it's even stronger. And then as you create that frequency of love for others, they're going to go and spread it out. So those are the ripples that we can create. And it's incredible what we can do.
Yeah, I love that. Ripples of love. I love that. I recently heard that if you're living in that frequency, if you're in the frequency of love, it's the highest frequency, right? And you're living in that you actually affect the number I was given was 750,000 people
Mm.
are affected by that energy. Does that make sense?
I I don't know. Yeah, I don't know that number. I just, I feel it could be even bigger.
Yeah.
I feel like if you in circles, like sometimes I run meditation circles and it's 8 people, and I think they've done already studies about that. It's enough. There's something magical about 8. I mean, it could be more. When 8 people gather together in a different parts of the world where, let's say, there's war going on, and they all meditate on peace and love, they literally can radiate it out into that area, into everyone who's living there. And they've measured like some conflicts would, tame down, and the hostility and the violence. So yeah, I agree with you. It doesn't take that many people, but there's something about group work as well. Like the more souls that align and harmonize, and they're all in that coherence with the same intention, like magic happens. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think, some people would call it even the power of prayer, right? Like,
Power prayer. Yeah.
and it says where two or three are gathered in my name, I am there. And so there is something very powerful in a group. Absolutely. Like where one can move 1,000, two can move 10,000. I mean, it multiplies much differently than it's not one times one or one plus one. It's much more than that. So the more people you get, all the more powerful. And so I did this thing where I studied a year for love for a year. I tried to figure out the meaning of love. I dedicated a year to it, and the things that I found out about love just blew my mind. And some of the things that we believe about love, I found out have absolutely nothing to do with love. And so it can really skew our perception of other people, of ourselves, and whatever when we don't really understand what love is. And so to some people, love is just soft and Valentine's Day and red hearts and chocolates and a heart-shaped box, whatever.
Yeah.
But love is who you are. Love is not just a feeling or an emotion. Love is so much more than that. Love is who you are, how you walk it, talk it, completely up to you, but you are love. And so, in knowing that it's something that you embody, that it is something that never leaves you, you don't hang it up when you get to work or throw in the corner when you get home. So, it's not like something that's just reserved for certain people in your life or certain situations in your life, but it goes with you because it's who you are. And so I think there's so many areas of life that we've kind of taken love out of the equation.
Mm.
Like we're, at work, we're still worried about systems and processes and whatever and outputs. And those are the things that are the most important things. Or at home, you might get into this rut or this routine where it's just busy, busy, busy. The kids have all these sports going on and everything's going on. And where is the room for love? Where does it all fit in? When the reality is, it's always there. It's never left. It's more you being in touch with it and you giving it some recognition,
Yeah,
right? Would you
absolutely.
say? Is that
Oh yeah, it's all like I mentioned, source energy, it is the lab force, right? This is the template of this universal creation. And we are basically in this ocean, we're just like little driplets of that bigger frequency, right? That we very much created from. And so absolutely we are that embodiment, and we get so disconnected sometimes that we forget, we get distracted. And it's important to create these little moments throughout the day to reconnect. And yes, no matter how busy you are, like you can find those little moments, with yourself, whether it's, early in the morning or before you go to bed or whatever, where I sometimes, I'll give you maybe an idea for those who are listening. I like to put like little notification in my calendar. So every hour I get this, the more around manifestation, but I get this little alerts like for, remember to breathe or remember to set intention. And this the reminder, it's like, oh yeah, like I see it coming on. It's like, yep, like this is a connection moment right here. So it's cultivated, and it's almost like going to a gym. And you know how like you go to the gym and you lift weights, you you don't jump from 5 pounds to 20. It takes time, you slowly kind of flex in that muscle. I think the same thing happens to like, you know, some of us get so disconnected we forget how to lift those weights, so we need to slowly do it a little bit at a time, and we do get to a place where it becomes part of who we are, like you said, it's part of authenticity, it's part of our expression. There's no other way but being that. You still can be that and be in the corporate environment, and can still operate from love with people you interacting with, and you helping them in that way, but just kind of shining your light no matter where you go. You don't have to dim your light in these situations. I believe authenticity is most important thing you can do to yourself. That's true self-love. Self-love, I think, is that recognition, acceptance, and allowance of all of that is, all the good, the bad, and in between, all aspects of yourself, and integrate them and accept them all. So don't, without judgment, not judging your shadows, there's no perfectionism here. I think the imperfection is actually the most beautiful thing. And that's all comes back exactly to the frequency of love, and all those emotions too that we experience, and it's like full spectrum, it's a rainbow. You can move around. There's actually, I don't know if you're familiar with Maps of Consciousness by David Hawkins, and he actually measured these different frequencies. And so, shame and guilt, they're usually on the bottom. That's kind of the energy that's really dense. But then as you start moving up, it's peace, it's gratitude, and ultimately love. And then there's energies actually even higher frequencies than love as well. But love is a good place to be. And you can get also musical instruments. There's a lot of really cool things. Like the frequency of love is measured as 526 hertz. So you can get these like tuning forks, or there's some really cool instruments that you can just play, and just like tune into that as well.
That's so cool. Yeah, I think it's amazing that there are so many tools, that there are so many things that are just free and available to us. And we just have to know where to get them, know what they are, know how to look for them, know how to use breath, how to figure it out so that you can uh, just increase what life really is, instead of just going through the day to day, embracing the day to day and living, truly living. And I think a lot of that just comes into play with everything you're saying, is when you get more in touch with who you are, appreciate yourself for who you are, love yourself for who you are, you're so much more able to give love to the world. And it's just so important. And it's right here. I mean, everything is right here for everyone. And you just have to look for it and you just have to discover it and work the muscle. I think that's so incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one more thing that I want to mention with that too, I think we get so serious about life in general. We're too serious, seriously. And and there is that reminder when I connect to that frequency that it's really about having fun and be joyful. So it's like stripping away all those conditions and returning back to that innocence when we were kids, when we were just playing for the sake of playing. And so this is just an invitation for everyone who's listening to drop back into that innocent. Like if you haven't played, go play. Figure out what that play looks like for you. Like take a little adventure maybe this weekend, or find joy and playfulness in your life when things especially are heavy and like you're always in this like I'm responsible, I have to do this and this and that. To release the I have to and just more like can I just be? So it's from doing to being. And that's really kind of where the civil line is. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. I know when I go to the park, I love to go on the swings. I loved it when I was a
Me
kid.
too. I
Do
too
you?
love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
I loved it when I was a kid. I love it now. And then all those joyful feelings that you had when you were a kid just come right back. And it just
Yeah.
feels so good and freeing. Yeah.
Sometimes like turn on that, your favorite song and just like dance to it in the kitchen, like no one is watching. Like find this little fun moments. Like we really have to connect back to that funness of it all. And then I think that frequency is gets us closer to love because then we're really loving this experience and we're treating ourselves in a way that like we embody in that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. And in the world that we live in, where I don't, there's way too many people, I think, who unfortunately uh, don't don't get it. I don't know what the right word to use is because everybody can believe however they want to believe. Like I am all about that. Like um, don't judge, just love. I mean, it's really kind of our only job is to love. And so just do that. Don't judge anybody. Everybody gets to be who they believe they're created to be and believe how they want to believe that that's all good. But at the same time, we have all this negative coming in all the time if you want to be around it. It's a turn of the channel away, all the negative, right? Like
Mhm.
you can watch the news all day and get depressed. You can read stuff that brings you down. You can be a part of that world because it exists, it's out there, and it's easy to find all the negative, or you can live in the opposite of that and look and live in the positive. And there's so much more positive and so much more good and wonderful things and so much more joy than there is darkness or heartache or depression or, all the things that can bring you down. And so I just encourage everybody too to look for the good. You don't have to live in the depressed. You don't have to look at the world through eyes that are doom and gloom. You can look at the other stories that you're missing that are in the world that are uplifting and wonderful and happy and joyful and loving. And so it's a choice we all get to make is
Yeah.
how are we going to take this world in and how are we going to walk through it? And
Yeah.
are we going to walk through it in love? Or are we going to be depressed and angry? Like you get to pick and you're free to pick however you want to pick. But man, my husband passed away several years ago, but
Mm.
to me, he was a pessimist and I've always been an optimist. And he would say that he was a realist and that I live in la la land. And I would always say, well, you know what? I like it here. I like it here. I'd so much rather live in La La Land is what he thought was La La Land than to live in glass half empty world, right? And seeing
Mhm.
the bad stuff. That's the stuff that hits the news. And so it's rare because it's hitting the news. If it was not so rare, then it'd just be such normal that you wouldn't even hear about it. So anyway, it's
Yeah, and it's also human condition. It's kind of that's the old paradigm way where it's really striving from polarization. And that's what we see in the world now with the wars, with the politics. It's really this push and pull energy, which is really lower frequency. But when you move into the left state, when you move into heart, which is fourth density, it's not so much about the push and pull because that's infinite. This is finite. The love frequency is infinite. It's quantum. So in that energy, like it's just overflow constantly of abundance, of creation, of relationship. It's not what have you given me yesterday or lately? What can I give you? So there's always like this measurement, right? Versus no, we're just in this together. We're co-creating together for the greater good. There's just completely different way of being with, people you interact with the world, and so you never start comparing. You're just always in this place of giving and receiving. So it's like it flows naturally without the resistance. So it's really about releasing the resistance. And as you start releasing the resistance and you go deeper into the surrender, then there's more capacity and more energy that comes in. So to health as well. Like vitality comes when you release resistances in your body symptom. Because when you hold it back, you're contracting your nervous system. What is disease? It's lack of ease, literally. So how do we bring ease back into life? How do we bring ease back into, our cellular memory, our DNA, our organs? So it always becomes this one coherent system, ecosystem that's within us. We are part of that universe. We are the universe, and it's one part of us. So I believe when it comes to, being healthy and vital and thriving, it all goes back to that. Like, how can we be one ocean with it all without the resistance?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, what a great way to end this on. That was such a beautiful way to say it all. Yeah,
Mm.
thank you so much. Thank you for
Thank you,
this. I so
Kim.
appreciate you. How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, best way is probably to go on my website, which is dianadivine.com. You can also find me on my YouTube channel. I have also a podcast called Soul Communication, and it's at Diana M Divine, as well as on Instagram, Diana M as in Mary Divine. And yeah, I would love to connect. And I have some master classes that I do on a monthly basis. I have a whole school, Quantum Academy. So come on my website, and you can also book a free consultation with me and see how we can work together.
That's awesome. That's so good. Thank you so much. I so appreciate you. I appreciate you taking your time, and so thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you,
And
everyone.
yeah, and thank you everybody for being with us today. If you know somebody who could get a lot out of listening to this episode, please pass it on to them and subscribe and share. And we're all in this together. So let's do this all the right way. And I just want to say that until we see each other again, I just pray that you keep your heart open and you live your love loud.
Mm.
All right, there's the episode. Thank you
Thank
so much. Thank
you.
you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, that was wonderful. I so appreciate you so much. That was so good. And yeah. Were you happy with the episode?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, yeah, good, good, good.
Yeah, it's very
Uh,
flowy. I love when it's flowy. I'm just
yeah,
kind of
yeah, it
yeah.
was
It's
awesome.
it's
You're
nice when
awesome.
the other person is in the same vibration, so it just kind of like flows without,
Yeah,
people can feel it like without that resistance that I was just
yes,
talking
yes,
about.
yes, exactly,
So
exactly.
it's nice.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you again. If I can ever do anything for
Thank
you,
you,
please let me
Kim.
know. Yeah,
Oh,
you
thank you, sweetie. Yeah, when do
okay.
you think this would come out? Well, it was live,
Oh,
so how
it
do you
was
usually
live,
do
so
it?
you can, if you go to my channel now, you can get it, but it will come
Oh,
out as an episode. So Aurora, my assistant, will let you know when that will be. I'm not sure when. If you have something a certain time you want it to come out because you've got something happening, let
yeah,
her
that's
know.
fine. That's
Okay,
fine. Yeah,
okay, all right.
that
Okay.
sounds good. All right.